vi avevamo promesso un evento internazionale e quindi siamo onorati di ritornare all'inglese. Abbiamo qui la Vice President di OrderPort, Lailand Flaherty. We are very pleased to have you here. You need the pointer? Okay, please. E naturalmente ci racconterà come OrderPort sviluppa il direct to consumer e quindi poi questa nuova alleanza con Wine Suite.
All right, everybody, I apologize. This is going to be in English. Terrible at best. So, you heard earlier from our CEO, Jim Agger, who is obviously the new CEO of OrderPort. I am our Vice President of Marketing. I come from a wine country background. I was born and raised in Napa, and I grew up in the cellar long before I ever got my start into the direct-to-consumer world. I have spent the last 20 years working with wineries of every size. I've had clients that produce 50 cases a year. I've had clients that produce 500,000 cases a year. And every winery has the same problem. Who are you consumers and how do you connect with them? And so I want to give you a little bit of context before I dive into some DTC strategies that I think have some applications not only in the United States, but here in Italy as well as across Europe. You have to think about the US wine consumer culture. It's a $70 billion industry every single year, and wine is consumed in all 50 states. This means that it has been a huge driver of global demand, but it has also meant that as an industry, we are driven ahead by what our consumers want. Originally, when you think about the American alcohol industry, we dealt with prohibition, the outlawing of alcohol that happened in the 1930s. When that ended in 1933, the government had to figure out how to reintroduce alcohol in a safe, responsible way. They came up with what we call the three-tier system: the producer, the distributor, and the retailer. That went on for a very long time. It was very successful, but it created a problem for wineries, and it was not knowing who's buying your bottle. You're sitting on a shelf with 50 other wineries that produce Chardonnay, Cabernet, whatever it might be, and they see your label, but they don't know your story. They don't know anything about your brand, except for, oh, maybe I like this because the label's pretty, which, let's face it, that's not gonna help anybody. And so the goal was, how do we shift away from that? How do we take back the control of finding out who our consumers are and connecting with them? And that's what's given rise to the American DTC industry, is building those personalized connections with the people who buy our wines. That is going to be your most valuable asset: who your consumers are, knowing them, knowing their patterns, and how you're going to be able to continue to maintain that relationship with them. And so again, talking about that three-tier system and the challenges, not to mention it is absolutely horrible for your margins. You see less money come in, and there's no control over your story. And your story is the most important thing that you have to share. People can like your wine, but if you don't connect with them, it's not going to be a repeat conversation. They're not going to come back if there is no connection. And so right now, DTC has become the largest driver of wine industry growth. The three-tier system still exists. You can still go to the grocery store and buy a bottle of wine, but more and more consumers are proving that they would prefer to go directly to the winery instead of buy it from a chain retailer or something like that. Especially now, when you look at buyers and consumer patterns, they want those connections. They want authenticity, and they want to know who is behind that label, which we see in so many, it's one of the biggest drivers that we're seeing in our industry today. And one of the big things too is how we're approaching these people. Again, it used to just be wine on a shelf. Now we have social media. Now we have e-commerce. We have all of these different ways to reach consumers that we didn't have previously. And so now, instead of focusing on volume, people are starting to focus on that execution. How are we connecting, and how are we using storytelling to differentiate ourselves from our competitors? And so these are going to be some of the biggest drivers of change that we have seen in the United States. A lot of it has to do with regulatory shifts. Alcohol is very highly regulated. Every single state gets to make its own rules in terms of taxing, in terms of volume, how much you're allowed to receive, how much you're allowed to ship. If you distribute in the state, you're not allowed to sell direct. All 50 states get to make their own rules. It makes compliance a nightmare. But as things have opened up and as regulatory arms have relaxed, more and more people are gaining direct access to wineries. That consumer evolution that I keep talking about, people prefer the direct connections. And so as tourism has grown, people are realizing that they can go to not just California, not just Napa. There are wineries in all 50 states. They can go to Southern California, they can go to Texas, they can go to New York and experience the wines and the wineries that they're invested in. Especially, again, going back to your e-commerce, mobile commerce is huge now. Creating something where you can go out to people and events and being able to engage with people across multiple platforms is huge, especially in the United States where we go to wine events. We go and do dinners and things like that. You want to be able to reach your customers from just about every angle that you can. And then again, tourism. Wine clubs have become that recurring revenue. It's this constant way to stay in touch with your customers. You connect with them on more than just a, hey, you're going to be in Napa, or hey, you're going to be in Temecula. It's this quarterly, monthly touch of, hey, you're staying engaged with us. And then events and hospitality, bringing people to you for a specific reason, picking up their wine, releasing a new vintage, harvest parties, anything like that. Those have all seen immense growth in the last 10 years, just because people, again, are far more invested in brands when they know more about them. And so DTC has become that core channel. People are moving away from distribution, whereas most wineries in the past, 20 years ago, would allocate 90% of their production to wholesale. That shift has flipped the other direction, and now it is almost exclusively DTC, especially for smaller wineries. They don't want to lose their margins, and so they have found multiple ways that they have been able to engage with consumers and keep those profits and those margins for themselves. Wine clubs, I mean, let's face it, the wine industry beat Netflix when it came to subscriptions. We've been doing it far longer than anybody else has. Wine Club was that original subscription service. In the United States, wine clubs were originally built to fund big costs like harvest or bottling. There were these big cash infusions that would come twice a year, quarterly. But as clubs evolve, which I'll talk about here in just a minute, we're starting to see a shift there as well. And so it's amazing. We're doing everything we can, especially at OrderPort, to help our customers adapt to these changes. Wine tasting and tourism, as you guys have heard, is obviously growing around the globe, and we want to capitalize on that as much as possible. You want to engage with your visitors and give them a reason to keep coming back. And so it goes from converting tourists that may only be in the valley one time in their entire lives, creating a long-term relationship with these people that's going to allow them to continue to buy your wine and support your company. And then we talk about online growth. We can thank COVID for that. Everything went online there for almost 2 straight years. And so wineries that previously hadn't necessarily invested in, a great shop online suddenly realized that they had to pivot. If they expected to survive in what became a almost exclusively digital world, people ramped up their online presence significantly and made e-commerce a very significant channel for themselves because they really didn't have a choice. Our wineries were closed, there was nothing we could do, and so in order to continue to maintain your business, you had to find a way to connect with people. Now that being said, DTC isn't just this magic wand. There are definitely some challenges that come with it. Obviously, benefits, we have higher margins. There's also more control over your brand, control over your story. You have an opportunity to show exactly what is special about your wines without any kind of dilution, without having to worry about a distributor or a retailer getting the story wrong in some way. There's huge opportunities for loyalty and lifetime value for consumers who continue to return to you year after year. And then when it comes to packaging and promotions, you can do whatever you want, whatever is going to fit your brand and be most beneficial for you and your company. That being said, there are some issues. Compliance complexity, like I said, within the United States, all 50 states get to make their own rules, and they change constantly. They like to change them at least once, if not twice a year, just to keep everybody on their toes. And for smaller wineries, staying abreast of that can be challenging. I know here you guys deal with international shipping in a sense. If you have a wine club member that lives in Germany and lives in Switzerland or France, you have to deal with that cross-border. Operational needs and balancing DTC with traditional distribution. That's a challenge because people have to figure out what is worth it. Where are my, how much do I allocate? Is this worth the investment? Are my margins going to make it worthwhile? And this is what we're running into now. So the future of loyalty. Wine clubs are great. Again, like I said, they were originally built to help us fund our bottling projects, help us fund our harvest. But as modern wine consumers change and as they start to evolve, their traditional club model isn't as effective as it used to be. One thing that we're noticing is that the demographic of people who maintain wine clubs, almost 60% of them are retired. The average age of a wine club consumer in the United States is 59 years old. That generation is starting to age out. They're quitting drinking because of health reasons. They're quitting drinking because of financial reasons, or they're dying. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And so now, as this new generation, especially Gen Z and millennials, they come into this world, they're invested in wine, they are not happy with that constant rigid structure of a wine club. They want something custom. They want to be able to do what they want. And so OrderPort, we essentially reimagined that subscription. We do have traditional wine club models built into our system, and they are all very, very successful. But the one that we see by far to have the most success is the subscription. It's a flat monthly fee that the member pays that they can use for whatever they want. Tasting fees, wine, merchandise, stays at the property, event tickets, you name it. They essentially accumulate this bank, and our clients that use this service, they're seeing average order values that are anywhere between 17 and 26% higher than traditional wine club shipment values, because people can go in and they can buy whatever they want. The money's already there, it's basically free. So if I already have $200 in the bank, I'm gonna spend another $100. It's just $100, right? And so the psychology of it is people are really engaging with it and they feel empowered, which is really important. People's budgets are smaller, and so you have to make it stretch. And so this is how people are making it do it. The new loyalty frameworks, it allows, again, that customization, that personalization. They're able to do it however they want. And retention right now is key for everybody. You have to maintain the customers that you have in order to maintain your business. Bringing in new ones is important, but you want to make sure you maintain the base that currently exists in your system. I do have two small case studies here just to kind of show you guys what we're doing. So Peltzer Winery is a large family winery that's based in Southern California. It's an area in Temecula. They produce a multitude of different wines, but they introduced a traditional wine club, and then after about 5 years, it plateaued. They weren't seeing any growth. They couldn't figure out why. Current members just maintained, but they weren't interested in doing really anything more than that. After consulting with our team, they decided to introduce that subscription style club to give members more flexibility. And their base is very local. They have a lot of people that live in the area that love to go visit them on weekends. They do a pumpkin patch in the fall. They do harvest dinners. They do a multitude of things that encourage people to come. And when they introduced this, they saw over 800 new members in a 12-month period. And they're looking at $800,000 in passive revenue. And that's one of the big things about this new subscription style club is it's passive. You run this club once a month, every 6 months, however often, and that money just comes in and the customer can choose what to do with it. There's no labor involved for you because you're not packing up club shipments. You're not getting organized for club releases. It is an automated system that makes it incredibly easy to maintain. And then Edio Vineyards is actually going to be hosting or assisting us with a modern wine clubs session at the DTC Symposium in California in January. They added 3 different levels, and it was so successful that they actually essentially shut down their original club because they're still maintaining it, but the demand for the subscription club so far outstripped that their traditional club was essentially rendered useless. They still maintain it, they keep those members, and a lot of the members are on both sides. They maintain both club memberships, but they add double-digit counts of people to each level of their wine club every month since they instituted it about 18 months ago, and they've seen double-digit growth every month since then. So this is why they brought me over here. This is why they brought me all the way from California to come talk to you guys, is how we can take these principles and apply that to the Italian and to the European wine markets. And this is what we wanted to share with you. It's these key principles and program pillars that you can use to build similarly successful systems within your wineries, within your areas, that is going to allow you to not only maintain what you're currently operating, but hopefully see growth and expansion. You know, lifestyle and loyalty. You want to reward engagement. Find a way to do that. Is it through a points system? Is it through, you know, a reward system? Spend this much and get this much back. However you want to frame it. You want to focus on experiences. It's not just a transaction. Make these people, whether they're Italian or if they're from the United States, make them part of your family. Make them feel like they belong as a part of your family. And make it flexible. People, like I said, the rigid wine club model is dying. Find a way to be engaging. Find a way to make it rewarding and make it so that they can essentially use it how they please. Make it that flexible framework that allows them to, maybe they don't want wine, maybe they want to come stay. Or maybe they would rather just order wine and not worry about events. Let them customize it so that it fits them. And then again, those program pillars, you can come up with multiple different ways. These are just 3 different ones that we thought would be, you know, potentially a good fit. Like I said, there's those rewards and credits, tiered access. Some people, again, only want wine. Some people want to be able to come in and help you harvest. Build something that fits your customer base. And then that cultural storytelling. Your story is so uniquely yours. That's what it needs to focus on. Find a way to incorporate that into all of this. Create that program that's based around your story, how you were built, how you got your start, and how you're maintaining. This is Subscription Reimagined for you guys. So the US comparison, people are after discounts. People want, you know, again, there's that shipment-driven model. And then that retention strategy. For you guys, the research that we did, it's all about the experience. It's about hospitality and lifestyle integration. It's about sharing that cultural access, especially for consumers that are not from Italy. You want to be able to envelop these people in your lifestyle and show why your wines and why your winery are so special and worthy of their investment. And again, it's about that belonging and that identity. Make people feel like they belong. Make them part of your family. I also have a handout that's out on one of the tables that has all of this information detailed that you guys can take with you when you're done. Global implications. And so there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration here, especially when it comes to the wine industry as a whole. It's a big world. There's wine produced in so many countries, but ultimately the industry is very small. We have to support each other. And so by creating these, you know, looking at the United States and what we have built over the last 30 years, you can learn there's a lot that can be done. And when it comes to storytelling and brand control, that matters just as much as distribution. You know, that wine club and that engagement experience is really important. There's knowledge transfer, there's partnerships for cross-border, as well as e-commerce and tourism as well. And then shared practices. Obviously, we came out here because we want to be able to help you guys support your businesses and grow and expand. And then there's a lot to be said for the wine world at large. Obviously, Europe, you guys, it's about balancing the tradition. You guys started it. You were the winemakers before we were even thought of at this point. And so there's a way to tell that story. With Latin America, with that growth of the middle class, they're demanding higher access to things like European and American wines. Let's take advantage of that. And then with Asia, the expansion of rapid expansion of e-commerce and being able to order anything from anywhere in the world, e-commerce is a pillar that cannot be forgotten. So, just in conclusion, obviously, the future is about personalization, focusing on hybrid models and what works for you, what works for your consumers, and that selling wine isn't about distribution anymore, it's about relationships and storytelling. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lailand. Thank you, Lailand. È improbabile che riesca a riassumere alcune cose, però diceva Lailand che ci sono dei materiali che potete utilizzare, che potete prendere all'esterno e potete utilizzare e poi approfondire gradualmente. Io inviterei sul palco per le conclusioni il grande venditore. Abbiamo capito che tutti dicono, Filippo, che sei il re dei venditori, e quindi ti farei una domanda nel lasciarti la parola per le conclusioni. Abbiamo visto una proiezione molto americana con la declinazione per l'Italia. È tutto così semplice? Grazie a Wine Suite.
Potrei tirarmi la zappa sul piede se dicessi sì, che con questa platea di produttori poi ci vengono a ricercare. No, in realtà le cose sono complesse. Se siamo qui oggi è perché evidentemente ci sono delle strade, ma ognuno deve trovare la propria e non sempre è così facile. Anche i produttori ci hanno parlato in maniera diretta, abbiamo ascoltato le storie di successo, ma come tutte, insomma, è inutile che ci nascondiamo, ci sono tante situazioni, tante cose da provare e riprovare, quindi in questo caso credo che allargare la visione sia una chiaramente degli aspetti principali, e forse questa edizione, che è la sesta del Wine Tech Symposium, forse più di altre, ci può aiutare ad andare in questa direzione, no? Prendo ora l'intervento appena concluso di Lailand, che è qualcosa di straordinario, no? Un anno fa non avremmo mai immaginato, anzi ogni tanto nelle slide citavamo, no? Come se fossero dei mostri sacri, qualcosa quasi di intangibile che ci raccontavano. Oggi ci vengono qui a raccontare delle storie concrete, no? Anche dare delle interpretazioni basate anche su quello che è il nostro contesto, e quindi, come dicevamo prima, non prendere uno a uno quello che si fa altrove e rifarlo qua, ma provare a dare un contesto, una visione critica che è metterci la testa poi sostanzialmente nelle cose. Quindi credo che questa edizione, insomma, questo aspetto di internazionalizzazione sia sicuramente l'elemento più importante. Dall'altra parte, insomma, un po' il nostro lavoro è restare comunque sul concreto, restare sulle cose basiche, no? Ieri eravamo a cena anche insieme e poi alla fine parliamo dei massimi sistemi, ma poi è il concreto, è il personale, la gestione delle singole attività, e quindi bisogna mantenere questo contatto diretto, e il Wine Tech Symposium ci aiuta a far questo, perché ci vediamo negli occhi, ci incontriamo con decine di produttori, e quindi ci aiuta a capire quelli che sono i bisogni. Dall'altra parte è chiaro che l'unione con un importante gruppo americano oggi ci dà due aspetti che sono probabilmente ancora non li abbiamo ancora compresi, perché da giugno sono passati veramente pochi mesi, ma se guardiamo alle slide che ha fatto vedere Matteo, dal punto di vista tecnologico stiamo promettendo al mercato di portare nel giro di pochi mesi sistemi di cassa avanzati, sistemi di gestione di loyalty come il Wine Club, l'e-commerce, che già erano nella nostra lista delle cose da fare, è innegabile, ma probabilmente ci avremmo messo nella migliore delle ipotesi 3, 4, 5 anni, e invece qui nel giro di qualche mese, nel giro di un paio di trimestri, probabilmente larga parte di voi ne potranno già utilizzare, quindi credo questo sia bellissimo. E dall'altra parte, insomma, avere anche un contatto diretto con persone come Lailand, ma spero a breve anche con produttori della Napa, di altri territori, con cui spero potremo avere anche delle interazioni, quindi magari l'auspicio è che nella prossima edizione vi siano anche produttori di altri luoghi oltre all'Europa, sarà sicuramente, credo stimolante. Direi che più o meno le cose, diciamo, ce le siamo detti. Io volevo concludere, come ogni anno, insomma, con i classici ringraziamenti, a partire da te, Giambattista. Ti abbiamo messo alla dura prova quest'anno con anche più lingue, più cose, facendoti fare tardi la sera prima, ma sei ancora, insomma, in straordinaria forma, quindi effettivamente niente ti scalfisce, e grazie ancora se lo vorrai, insomma, sei sempre qua, ormai ti è stato annoverato la targhetta di presentatore, quindi
allegria.
Esattamente. E poi vabbè, chiaramente i relatori, insomma, a partire da Giulio, a Lailand, tutte le persone che si sono succedute, c'è stato un grande lavoro dietro, insomma, il 15 minuti, 20 minuti in realtà sono un grande sforzo, una grande attenzione che hanno messo tutte queste persone e dobbiamo ringraziarle. Chiaramente c'è anche chi si è fatto qualche ora di aereo, in alcuni casi anche più di 10 ore di aereo, quindi veramente per noi è un piacere veramente molto, molto grande. Gli sponsor li hai già ringraziati tu, però effettivamente hanno dato un contributo importante anche per la realizzazione, per tutte le attività che dalla colazione al pranzo che adesso fra poco ci accingiamo. Tra l'altro gli sponsor sia Direct from Italy che Sistemi che anche Wine Tourism Hub, ci saranno anche dei banchetti qua fuori ora, quindi in pausa pranzo, se avete il piacere di scambiare due parole per conoscere meglio le loro proposte o anche per acquistare il libro, il manuale di Wine Tourism Hub, sarà possibile farlo. Oltre a Sistemi ci sono anche tutti i partner di enologia qua presenti, tra cui Vecomp, che è stato sponsor l'anno scorso, assieme credo anche ad altri, quindi insomma è bellissimo vedere questa famiglia allargata, non solo partner sponsor, ma anche partner, diciamo, altre aziende che vi sono qua quest'oggi, ed è molto, molto bello, ecco, questo tema di unione e di collaborazione anche tra aziende di servizi del mondo del vino. E poi chiaramente ringrazio tutti voi produttori, perché insomma prendersi una giornata, venire qua ogni volta da quando mettiamo l'evento online, vediamo i primi iscritti, poi vi richiamiamo e vediamo che confermate, poi arrivate qua la mattina, insomma tutte queste fasi sono per noi veramente molto emozionanti, e non ci smettiamo mai di stupire di vedere una platea così piena, insomma, soprattutto in un periodo dell'anno così concitato. L'ultima precisazione, perché appunto ho visto tanti apprezzamenti sull'operato mio di Matteo, benissimo, però chiaramente da diversi anni ormai, insomma, siamo cresciuti come azienda, quest'anno ormai siamo più di 20 persone, anzi se sommiamo ormai anche la parte americana raggiungiamo più di 60 professionisti, e quindi oggi particolarmente, insomma, a parte il contributo di Roberto, Luca, che sono gli altri manager, ci siamo ormai una squadra appunto particolarmente eterogenea. Federica che ha dato una mano grande, diciamo, alla realizzazione insieme a Roberto di questa giornata, ma anche tutti i colleghi che oggi sono qui presenti e che fanno loro la differenza. Ecco, in questo caso credo sia importante non solo citarli, ma rendergli onore. Basta, direi che la cosa più importante l'abbiamo fatta, adesso ci possiamo divertire.
Mi permetto solo di dire che se la velocità che abbiamo visto ormai si è spostata dagli anni ai mesi, io non so, il prossimo anno vediamo cosa ci aspettiamo, perché ogni anno a questo punto diventerà un nuovo reveal, come si dice.
Siamo positivi, ma restiamo con i piedi per terra, però assolutamente anche il prossimo anno troveremo qualcosa per coinvolgervi, assolutamente. Grazie ancora a tutti voi e buon proseguimento.
E poi di là.
Ricordo solo appunto che verrà servito il pranzo in quest'altra ala, e poi dalle 15 ci saranno per i 50 produttori o chi altro vorrà la sessione di workshop dedicata, dove avrete la possibilità di criticare tutti i nostri sviluppatori direttamente. Grazie. Siamo acabata come al solito egregiamente, alla grande.